Now go.
Butternut cracking, take 2. There are numerous methods to crack butternuts, including the time-honored tradition of smashing your fingers instead of butternuts using a hammer and a concrete surface. You can use a bench vise, which works quite well, a large, sturdy bench vise, though this is slightly time-consuming because of the winding in and out of the bench vise. We have hit upon a method of using a half-ton arbor press available at Harbor Freight. Watch for the sales. To use the arbor press, we use a breaker bar. We set the arbor press up, clamped to our work surface, or bolted in. Have a rag, which we'll explain in a minute, the necessary use for that. Wire cutters and a glove, and of course, butternuts. This is probably about 1/10 of our harvest this year. It was a very good year. Maybe more than 1/10 of the harvest. As you'll note, some of the butternuts still have the husk on them. Some do not. We started harvesting these probably September as they began falling out of the tree. Into October and got probably 40-some gallons of butternuts. Some of these husks peel off quite easily. They have been dried in the sunshine for those months and left on the driveway and then run over with the car or the tractor to remove most of the husks. To crack them, we're going to have the pointy end up, and if you can ascertain the 2 halves of the butternut, you want 1 half forward, 1 back. Set it in your arbor press, flatten it out some. This is where the rag comes in. You want to wrap it around that butternut because they do tend to explode and scatter all over the place. Some gentle pressure on there. That's why I like the arbor press, because it's much easier on your arms. And there we crack the butternut. Now most of the time we do not get this lucky and get the meats directly out of the butternut. That's what the wire cutters are for. We'll demonstrate that in a moment. Yep. The butternut has narrowing chambers across its width that locks the meat in place. Leave the glove on for the wire cutters because you will get blisters. Just a matter of snipping away excess shell and releasing the meat. Again, sometimes this is easier said than done. There's no proven method or spot to do this in. Just keep working your way around the shell. It is almost impossible to extract butternuts whole. There are some cultivated varieties that are much easier to extract and to shell. As most cultivated varieties of anything, they do not taste anywhere near as good as these wild butternuts. We have 1 butternut tree in the yard. There appear to be several male trees in the yard. Butternuts supposedly are easily propagated by planting the nuts in some very rich soil or in your compost pile for over the winter and then transplanting the seedlings in the spring. As you know, at that time I just cracked some of the excess husk off of there to make it easier to set in the vise. I use a breaker bar. There's a fine line between cracking and crushing the butternut. As you'll note, many pieces come off. And again, we have lucked out with extracting a full piece of meat there. That's cause for celebration, as that rarely occurs. One more demonstration here. Again, excess husk, and that's just more. You can expect to make a mess with these no matter how, so I do this in the garage in an area where I'm not concerned of the debris and keep a broom and a vacuum nearby. If they crack too easily, it's probably a dry butternut. Oh, that one was a good one. The dry ones tend to crack quite easily. Now, as you can see, there's that half piece of meat. It does not want to come out because it's interlocked about this area where the shell narrows. You can often worm them out, though. It does compress the meat slightly. And that is cracking a butternut. We'll demonstrate one more time using the wire cutters. I tend to work my way on other parts of the shell, looking to create a fault in the area that holds the meat. That way you don't crush the meat with the wire cutters. This shell debris is good for not much. It's hard as nails, very sharp. If you have a tumbler and you do rocks or metal polishing, particularly firearm shell casings, it can be used for that, though I would be very careful because this is very sharp. It will take a finish off anything. Do not throw it in an area where you'll be walking barefoot. And I don't think it's suitable for animal bedding either. Though it probably makes good fill, and it'll probably burn quite readily. It is basically wood. That concludes this demonstration of Butternut Cracking 2011.